Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm your host, Todd Marquardt, here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. Also on podcasts, you can just search for Talk Law Radio, and you'll see my smiling face there. We're here with attorney Ed Marvin talking about franchise law, but this is the fourth segment, and so you know what that means.
And now, it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
So I like to talk about legacy because I focus on business and estate law, including last wills and living trusts. And the central idea with having a will or a trust is to leave assets to beneficiaries. And that's part of a legacy. So, Ed, I wanted to ask you, when you think about legacy, what comes to mind?
Well, I guess several things. I guess there's the legacy that you leave, who you were as a person.
That's right. How they're going to remember you.
That's correct. And then I guess there's also the tangible assets that you may leave behind. Valued things that your children or your nieces and nephews or whoever you leave them to will cherish because they were a part of you. Yeah,
I've seen families that fight more about stuff that's not valuable because of the sentimental feelings that they have attached to them.
I can understand that.
So for yourself, can you think of a family member that you inherited something from or that you learned a value from? Or do you want to talk about what you hope your kids will remember or receive from you?
So as far as a family member, I'd probably say my grandfather, who was also Edward B. Marvin.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the fourth Edward.
Oh, okay.
There's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then my son is Edward the fifth. Sometimes.
So that's a legacy there.
That is a legacy.
The name.
And so I think that I probably inherited the hard work. I think is something that comes from both sides of my family, both my mom and my dad's side. But so I think that's an important legacy that I've inherited down the line is just the ability to work hard.
What kind of work did your grandfather do?
So Edward, Marvin, he did a variety of things. He was a dairy farmer. He ran hay. But essentially a farmer, so yeah, that was part of what he did, and just very kind of entrepreneurial, and then and I had the pleasure of knowing him for quite some time. He passed away in 2007, and then my mom's dad, he passed away when I was a little bit younger, so 1989. So I didn't have a chance to get to know him as well, but yeah, he did the farming and so I guess that's one of the things that was handed down is just the ability to I love to work hard.
Okay, that's something your kids will remember you by.
I think so. I think so. I think more importantly, I hope my kids remember me as being a good dad, a devoted husband, and just a good person.
Awesome. Yeah, my dad's dad grew up on a farm in Nebraska, but his legacy started when he left the farm. He was the only one to leave, and he wasn't a good farmer because he had hay fever, and so he didn't enjoy it that much.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to go to World War II because he had flat feet and asthma, and so because of all of his problems, he got to go to college, and he became an eye doctor and moved to New Mexico because there were no eye doctors in southern New Mexico. And then my dad became an eye doctor, so the legacy was supposed to be for one of the grandchildren to become an eye doctor and take over his office. I said, Granddad, I can't pass calculus. He said, what's that? He doesn't use calculus, but it's a class that you have to get through in order to get to optometry school. So that's my story about my grandfather that was a farmer as well. So let's get back to franchise law. A franchised business might be somebody's legacy that they pass down. I can't think of any where that's been in the news recently, but I'm sure that it's done where it's passed down generation to generation. So you were talking about the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. What are some other things that go into that? Somebody interested in franchising their business will probably have to work on before hiring somebody like you.
Sure. So it's I would say the operations manual,
Okay.
or what I would call the ops manual. And then that is part of the FDD. One of the 23 items that is talked about is whether or not the franchisee or prospective franchisee has been given access to the ops manual. And there's a variety of ways you can do that. But again, this goes back to the secret sauce, right? I mean, this is your operations. I mean, this is how you do what you do. Mm-hmm. With restaurants, there might be specific point of sale systems that are mandated. There might be specific cleanliness standards. There might be specific hiring practices that need to be followed. But that operations manual is something that's typically very closely guarded because it's the secret sauce.
Right. Recipes.
Number one, that's probably the biggest as far as the secret of information would be the recipes. Mm-hmm. How the food is made in the restaurant industry. But this isn't just limited to restaurants. I mean, it could be. You could. I've seen car wash franchises. Maybe you've got which chemicals you're using to get the car clean. Mm-hmm. Things that the general consumer doesn't know, and only if they become a franchisee would you give them this information.
Right.
Right. And so, but that operations manual, that's basically that's the Bible as to how to run the business, and that's something that's obviously very closely guarded by the franchisor, and so they will disclose it. They will show it to the franchisees at the right time. But as part of the purchasing process, if you're a prospective franchisee, is you might want to look at that ops manual and see how detailed it is.
Okay.
Right? I mean, if you're being told, hey, we've got a great ops manual, we got a great operation, we'll tell you exactly what to do, you don't have to worry about it, and all that type of stuff. Well, the way that the Federal Trade Commission looks at this, they say, well, fine, that's fine that you're saying that you've got all this stuff, but you're going to have to actually show it to them. That's part of the FDD process to explain kind of the deal.
Yeah.
So operations manual is really a big one, and that goes back to what we talked about, I believe, in the first segment, where it's how do you put down on paper the magic that created your business, mm-hmm. right? And so being able to do that is when a client comes to me and they say, okay, I want to do this, I want to franchise, the first thing we're looking at is we're saying, okay, well, how do you do this? 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 And if you've already gone in and kind of put down this information, before meeting with me, that can save you some time, right? Save you some expense, because, and it's good to think about. You can have the initial meeting where I explain all this stuff, and then you can leave that meeting and then we come back and meet again, and you need to add a little bit more here, you need to add a little bit more there.
Okay.
But the first step in the process is going to be writing down what it is that you do and what makes your business enterprise so successful.
I think that writing all that stuff down is part of what makes you successful. Having a system to begin with.
I agree with that. The thing is, though, is many people, they have systems in place that they do because it's who they are.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so, you might, like I was saying, you might be a very hands-on hard worker, and that's just who you are. And so you look at things like, I don't know, customer service, right? I mean, you probably talk to people in your law firm about, listen, when somebody comes in the door, this is what I want you to do. I want you to,
be nice, say hello.
Say hello, whatever the case may be, right? But if you got to put that down in an operations manual, okay, so that someone goes and they want to start another law, this is my example. It wouldn't work in the legal field because of the state bar regulations, et cetera. But let's just say, right, you run a law firm, you're a business owner. You go and you try to put that in writing to tell people what makes you so successful, right? Have you ever done that? I mean, you might have an employee handbook, maybe, and so that might be a good place to start.
Well, see, I started the operations manual when my staff would irritate me. By doing something the wrong way. And so I would write down, no, this is how you answer the phone. This is how you schedule an appointment, because somebody along the way did it in a way that I didn't like. Right. So that makes it easier for training too.
So over time you've developed it. And like if you were, again, that because of the way that the state bar regs work, it'd be tough to have a legal franchise, if you will. But if you were to come to me, I'd say, okay, Todd, I want you to gather all that written information that you have. Let's bring it in. Let's take a look at it. Let's reduce this down to, what we would call a operations manual. Okay. So I think that's that's kind of the hardest thing for people to really kind of grasp is getting down in writing why their business is so successful and what it is that they've done. Because remember, what you're doing here is you're saying, look, franchisees, you have to replicate this. You have to do this.
Do it my way.
That's right. That's right. And there's plenty of franchises that have well, I should say, there's plenty of restaurants that were successful or other businesses that were successful. Then they tried to franchise and it didn't work out because they couldn't get the franchisees to replicate what they were doing.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Sure.
We've been talking about franchise law with attorney Ed Marvin, and we're going to have to take another break, except I won't be back for a couple of weeks. Next week, I'm going to New York City, and so we'll have a recorded episode there, but then I'll be live after that. So I'll talk to you later.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.